Hello everybody, today we'll be doing some coding and my name is Peter. I am the owner of the company called WebAca. I'm also a developer and we'll do some coding today. So what we will be working on. So one of our clients requested us to build a website and he asked us to build a module that the user would be able to click on an icon and they would be able to see what specific sizes are and what a person can fit into a specific size of a storage unit. So the client is Essential PSL Self-Storage, and this is the module that we're going to be building right now. Let's get started. So we are working in Dreamweaver, and I've already started a construction of that module. Now, how do we build the modules here? We are building modules using PHP programming and HTML and CSS. That's basically our stack, and we're going to be also adding these elements right into our library, so we can reuse them in future. They're not going to look exactly this way, but we can always swap out images, text and pictures, and we can repurpose this block for something else. Okay, let's get started. So one of the most important elements here is to make sure that we define the starting point and the end point of our section. I decided to call it BC9. I'll probably going to change that nomenclature down the road. Going to upload this thing right now, and we are working inside of WordPress. So the way that we are building this section here, we are using advanced custom fields to integrate the internal administration into the website. So the user will be able to modify their elements by themselves within the administrative panel of the website. As you can see, we have previous unit, previous block, CR locations, has images and links to other pages, and you can see that it has been built using ACF, Advanced Custom Fields. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing for this block as well. Let's get started. Now we're going to go to Custom Fields and we'll create a new field. Now let's new group. Let's call this one. Let's call this one 5-item option block. And I want to make sure to include the BC9 here, so we can search it after. This unique identifier allows us to quickly find elements within the library and allow my graphic designer to mark each element, so I can, as a programmer, know which elements to include into a client's website. Okay, so let's add the label here. This is going to be, so basically right now we have created a group inside Advanced Custom Fields, and we need to add specific items that we're going to be displaying. So we'll need the header, we'll need individual blocks which will hold another header, paragraph, 2 images. So I think we'll be doing standard header for this one and the repeater field for these things. We'll follow along, you'll see what we'll do. So let's do header. Actually, before we start with that, let's do a group BC BC9. Why I like to do a group? Because if there is nothing displayed, well, basically group contains encompasses all of those elements inside. So if I have another header, the WordPress system doesn't get confused for two same headers on the same page, which can quite easily happen when you have multiple library elements together. So we're going to give a unique identifier to this thing, and then we're going to create a group, and inside the group we're going to add our header, and we're going to reference within our code to this specific identifier BC9 inside this group. So the system will now not get confused. So we have added a header inside our group, and we're going to add a repeater field now, and we'll call this items. Now, in terms of the items, it's going to be a repeater. Again, this is a premium ACF module. If you're building websites professionally, you'll definitely need one of those. And let's go and create our repeater elements. We have title. Title is divided into two elements here, upper element and lower element. Let's call title top. To change that to title top, and actually let's just do, yeah, why not, title T. Okay, that's better. And then we're going to have title B, stands for title bottom. Same thing, text. Then we're going to have header. Actually, we can just use an editor here to contain our header and the text. Let's just do that. Content. Let's call it content. And we're going to use WYSIWYG editor. Not sure if you pronounce that correctly. Okay, and we're going to have two pictures here. Field, image left, and that's going to be an image. And for images, we need to make sure that the output image URL, I don't want to mess with the arrays, just don't have time for that. And it's going to have a secondary image over here, image 2. What did we call this? Image left, image right. Okay, that's going to be image as well. Wonderful. Now, last but not least, we're going to save this real quick. Actually publish, I don't want to lose it. Okay, we want to make sure that the page template is equals to homepage. If you haven't worked with page templates, look into page templates, because that's really useful. You'll need to know how to work with page templates. Basically, each page has its own template, and I can add my code into it. It's part of WordPress architecture. You'll need to know that if you want to work with it. With this library here, it's actually very easy to work with page templates and create new ones. So make sure you have this set to home page and something else. Items is a repeater field, and we want to make sure that it has minimum of 5 and maximum of 5 as well. Okay, that should be good. Now let's go back to our page. Let's go back to our page. And there's our block over here. Okay, I forgot one more thing. I'm going to go back to custom fields. 5 option block. We want to hide content editor. We don't want to see this here. It's going to confuse clients. Okay, we're going to move this thing down. Going to move it down to position it in the same order as our page over here. So it has to be just under 0 locations, which is one more step down. Okay, there we go. So now that we have this thing here, we can actually populate it. We can actually populate it. Where is it? So, what size do you need? Title 1, this. Title 2, this. Now, when I copy and paste from PDF file, for some reason it preserves the line breaks, which is fairly annoying. I haven't found a way how to get around it. If you know how to get around it, let me know, but I have to actually delete and format it in first before I can add it into the page. Going to update that and add this here. Now this is a title, and the title deserves a heading too, at least. And we're going to need to add some images. Let's add an image. So we have a box and we have this. Now we're going to have 5 of those. And I'm waiting on my graphic designer to send me those images right now. So as soon as I get those, I'm going to add them to the rest of the boxes here. Okay, so we have, this is pretty much all of the content that I have right now. And I'm going to need to generate additional content for other boxes. But for now, this is it. In fact, I'm actually going to just copy and paste this across the other boxes for now. And I'm going to add the actual sizes. So I'll be back in a short bit. Okay, so I have populated all of the boxes here. I've modified the actual sizes for them, and you can see that I still don't have images. Still waiting for the images from Graphic Designer. So it might seem like we're doing things backwards. We don't have a code yet to display what we don't have the code to display the content, and our content is halfway there, but believe me, it's going to get there, and it's the most efficient way to build a website is to have content first. Now that we have a content there, let's continue with our development. What size do you need? So we need to have the section between our locations and frequently asked questions. So it has to go right over here. Let me just quickly check. Yep, that's where we have it. Okay, so I have created a section ID. This is going to be our starting point, and it's going to encapsulate our code over here. Let's go back to our CSS file, and I want to make sure that we have very clean and consistent file. I like everything to be laid out extremely neat. So we're going to copy this, and we're going to create a comment inside CSS file. So we can add our information, add our code over here, our CSS styles between the two comments. Okay, I think we're pretty much ready to get started. So first thing first that we need to do is to find a Bootstrap element that will look similar to this. And for that, I'm probably going to be using tabs, and that's what I'm going to be searching for right now. So I'm going to go to Bootstrap. In fact, I'm actually going to type out Bootstrap Tabs and see if we can find something very similar. You can see that there is here we go. See how we can click on tabs and information changes down below? So this is a very similar to what we're looking for. And here we have actual buttons. So I think this comes as close as to what we need. We just need to replace the pills, they're called, with actual customized buttons, and we're good to go. I'm going to copy this code here. And I'm going to paste it right over here. Now, first thing, I'm going to make sure that we don't have any conflicting containers here, and we do not, and that's good. Okay, looks like I have just received. Information from my designer. Let's open that. Close this out. Okay. Yep. That's what we needed. Let us now add this right over here. Going to replace file and destination. There should be two that had to be replaced. Probably did. Okay. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to just quickly add the last bits of images right over here. Going to copy and paste this here. I think I double copied some of them. Maybe not. Alright, I'll be back shortly. Okay, so we're 20 minutes into the build now, and we have populated all of our images, and pretty much the content is there. We'll just need to replace the text once it's populated. I'll probably ask my client to do that for me. I'm going to update that. Okay, awesome. Let's get back to programming. So far, we have just installed our tabs. And let's have a look at how it's going to look on the actual website. Okay. It's going to look like this. And it's not going to work. Or will it? What is the three dot dots? Three dot dots are information. Info 1. 2 and 3. Let's have a look at if it actually is working. Okay, info 1, info 2, info 3. Okay, it's working. Let's have a look if we have JavaScript errors. It cannot load some icons, but that's fine because we haven't got to them yet. They're the footer icons over here, but we don't have any errors. That's good. Alright, wonderful. So our tabs are working, and now the next element here is to format them to look like this. Let's get started. Going to remove the empty elements here. Sections. So before we start, I'm going to hijack some code over here from the previous element. Remember, I told you that we want to make sure that we are targeting a specific element, a specific group within advanced custom fields elements. So this is where we are selecting that specific group that we have created. And this group that we have created is called BC9. So I'm going to change this AC to BC9. Like this and like this. Alright, let's get that uploaded. Let's have a look at what we have here. Okay, we are showing information here. This is good. That means that BC9 as a group exists, and it is already taken in header. And the header comes from here. Okay, let's display that header. Okay, containers. I'm going to add some CSS class here, CSS styles, and some div tags. Container div class row, div class column 12, and h2 PHP echo header. So very basic PHP work here. There's really hardly any PHP programming that's required. It's very self-intuitive. Okay, we got the header here. Great. So the next element that we'll need to work on is to make sure that we target this h2 and format it in such a way that it looks nice. So I like to encapsulate all of my elements with identifier WA, and then we're going to add inside of it h2. So we make sure that we target that specific h2 and not something else on the website. So we're trying to be specific here. And I'm going to use this font. When you're using fonts, make sure that you actually import them correctly through. I'm using Google Fonts, so I'm actually importing a font here at the very top. Because not all browsers will have that font, so you need to make sure that you supply it. Alright, let's have a look at this. So the font has changed, and the way that I develop, well, not really develop, but the way that I style things, I like to style them directly on my inside my browser in Google Chrome. The only thing that I'm going to prepare here is the color, because I don't want to chase the color around there's a specific color that the headers are here. And let's get started. So H2, color is this, text align center. I'm going to give it some margin, but I'm going to give it margin like this, margin top 4. This is a built-in class within Bootstrap, so I'm going to take advantage of it so we don't have to create too many CSS styles that are unnecessary. And font size, I think it's going to be 2, maybe 3 EM, maybe even bigger, 4 EM. Yep, that looks like it. Font weight, let's do 100. Okay, I think that looks fairly good. And let's replace our CSS styles here. So all is good. We're going to refresh this page. We're going to see no change except for the margin that will suddenly appear here. Okay, so we have margin, but the margin is very small. I want to increase that margin because it really blends in with the other elements there. So I'm going to give margin to this element right over here. Margin top, let's do 40 pixels. Maybe even more, let's do 50 pixels. Yeah, that looks like a different element. Now there's a way that you can do it inline, or you can specify margin right over here, so I'm going to specify it within my CSS document. Margin top, what was that, 50 pixels? So it does get a bit boring when you do all of the styling here, but it's a necessary work that we have to do. Now you're probably wondering what the heck are we going to do with the buttons here? How we're going to convert the pills over here into something that looks drastically different. It's a good question. I don't know myself. I haven't really worked that much with tabs navigation, so we're going to look into the styling that the Bootstrap has. I'm going to put a pause onto this video. I'm going to go through the styles that are built in, and I'll give you an update shortly how we are going to go about changing the pills here. So quick update, so I decided to potentially go this route. I'm going to add a class that will override the existing class, so I don't want to mess around with Bootstrap styling. It does go quite deep into the styles, so I don't want to overwrite the core bootstraps, but I'm going to override them with my own styles by adding a style after it. So we are going to add wa_item to li elements, and I'm going to upload this, and we're going to add this class right here, but not only like this. We're going to target it specifically to this section here. And also, when I'm looking at the pills over here, you can see that the style of the blue background over here is applied directly to the link element. So we're going to have to override that, and we'll need to potentially do an A class here, a link. We'll see if this is going to take on higher priority than the native Bootstrap element. Okay, so definitely we have it taking priority, because I can change background color now with anything I want. Now this is background of all of the items here, but I also want to make sure that I target the active element as well. Now let's have a look at where the active class comes in. Now active class comes in within the nav link. So I am presuming that this active element, active class, will jump between nav item and wa_item. And because it does that, my style has overwritten the active element. Let's remove this nav link active. So I'm going to need to follow this standard here to make sure that I also able to control the active element. So I'm going to give a pause to this video, and we'll continue shortly once I do some experimenting with the to make sure that I target the active element as well. Okay, so we were able to I was able to create this structure that I needed, and I had to do a bit more modifications here. So I had to specify one more override here. wa_item_link is the class that I've created, and it actually sits right inside the a tag. And this way I was able to create this CSS structure, wa_item_link, which points directly to the elements that are not active, and this will point and affect the elements that are actually active. You can see that in action right over here. I'm going to refresh the screen. If I select home, I can set background of a different color, background color, and let's set it to I don't know, this color, for example. And I can also address the target styles of the other buttons right over here, and we can set a different background color to that as well. Color, I don't know, like this. Okay, so that's good and dandy. We have almost all of the controls that we need, and now we need to style the buttons this way. I don't really like the sharp corners that designer has created, so I'm going to give it some roundness. So it's not going to be exactly as what designer has done. So let's get started. Homepage. We have links, and we also need to manage all of them at the same time, which will be done through this. Yes, through this. Through the regular ones. Yep, right here. So let's give them some height. Padding. Let's give them, I don't know, 10 pixels. Height, and actually more like 15 pixels. Okay, that looks good. Going to give them color. Color. Let's find that color that we need. Right here. Okay. Is that the same color? No, it's not. it is not the same color. Luckily, my designer created color chart for me. Light orange, I presume that's the one. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, sounds good. Let's give them some margin. Margin left 20 pixels. Actually, no. Margin right 20 pixels, because I want information to start right from the very first box right over here. And there's a question that I have: how come it does not start from the very beginning? So I'll need to see why that happens. This happened not because I messed something up. This is how it comes default from the Bootstrap. Okay, and the font size will be 2em. We also need to give it some. I think this font type is good. And let's text transform uppercase. I think 2em is too big for it. Let's do 1.5. Yeah, that's good. Color, font size. Let's make it black by default. Actually, no. Let's make it white. Okay. Okay, that should be good right now. The next step would be to add our information. Let's upload this to our CSS. File. And let's add some information. So we have home profile contact. Let's change that over to 5 by 10. I know I am adding this by hand. I know that we need to grab this information from WordPress, but this is really to style it first, and then we're going to do the integration with to retrieve information from WordPress a little later. Let's do this H2. Actually, let's do H3 here, because we have H2 over here to be on search engine optimization good practices list, and let's do H4 for the actual size. Okay, that's good. And I'm going to copy and paste this information right over here and right over here. So I want to have at least 3 buttons that I can play around with, and to make sure that I style everything properly and that they look good together. Because if I style just one button, when you add the next one, it usually throws everything out of whack. It looks horrible. So we'll need to make sure that they are styled correctly. Alright, so let's have a look at this now. Let's refresh it. So, and that's how websites are built when they're custom coded. It takes time. It's not a very fast thing to do, but we built element once and we are able to reuse it for other websites, and you're able to access all of our library elements. We do have subscription of $5 a month. You get access to all of the elements that we built. to date, and you can just simply put them into your websites and build very high quality websites very fast. But it does take some time to build the elements. And one more thing, if you know how to build such elements, you're welcome to submit additional library elements to our library, and that gives you 2 months of free. So if you like coding, if you want to be part of the community, you're welcome to join. I'll have links to our library in the description of this video. Alright, so let's keep on moving. I don't like marketing information. It's really not marketing, it's something that we, as a small community of developers, work on and help each other. 5 by 10 H3, so I'm going to need to target H3 here, because I want to make sure that it looks black in color. And I'm going to copy this, I'm going to add H3, and I'm going to give it some color. Okay, there we go. So not only do we need it colored black, but we also need to make it centered. Center, and we need to make sure that it is the right font size, font type, because that does not look like what our clients have seen in their mockup. They have seen this in their mockup. So we need to make sure that it looks at least somewhat similar. By accident, my designer has used a font that is not web friendly. It does happen sometimes. So we need to find, I found something that looks fairly similar. That's what we're using here. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I think 1.8 looks good. The only thing that concerns me is that the sizes are rather different. So I think we'll need to specify specific size to each box so they look the same. So we'll do that as well. So whenever we code things, we make sure that it's very high quality. And what I also don't like is the mobile responsiveness of this thing. I really don't like how the mobile version looks. Let's have a look at what the Bootstrap element is by default. How did they address the mobile responsiveness for tabs? We might have to create a completely separate element here so that it does look good on mobile devices. And that's the problem with majority of other pre-built elements. They seem to look good on desktop, but when you look on mobile devices, they look horrible. You can see that, I mean, Bootstrap is supposedly should be mobile friendly, but see how they restructure? Looks horrible. So we'll need to find a very different approach for a mobile device version. So this would work well for desktops, but for mobile devices, definitely need something else. And we'll work on it. We'll make sure that the mobile version looks really nice, and it will turn out to be a fairly big project, the small box. That's the quality of development blocks that you don't usually get with other companies. We go full way all out to make sure that it looks really sharp on all of the devices. Okay, so that's H3 that we have addressed right now. Let's look at H4 right now. So I'm going to copy this, just change it to H4. The color is white. Going to refresh this. Okay, so definitely need to make some changes with it. Let's not use this font. Let's change the font size to something reasonable. 1.2. Or maybe we do use this font. Yeah, I think this looks okay. Now we'll need to also adjust the width to make sure that the boxes are square across. The thickness we'll need to adjust. Font weight. Yeah, there we go. Now we're talking. Let's do it 1.8. Yep, this looks okay. Now what I also don't like is this huge gap between the space between the two headers, so I'm going to change that as well. And I'm going to change it right here. Add in bottom 0. Or was that margin bottom? Yes, really margin, not padding. Yeah, margin. Okay, so what about this thing? Okay, so we have removed the margin, but I still think that we can push the bottom header up just slightly. Let's do that. And for that I'm going to target the H4 here. Margin top, -5 pixels. I don't like to use negative pixels. I think it's bad practice in my opinion. I try to avoid it at all costs possible, but sometimes we just have to use it, and we use it very reasonably. Margin bottom 0. There we go. Imagine how much time you can save by just using our library. We have a lot of elements there already, and we add elements every time that we build something new. That's the whole idea behind that project, is to make sure that the web developers are able to deliver high-quality websites to their clients without having to spend so much time developing high-quality blocks. Okay, so now we're going to give it some minimum width. Definitely 200 pixels is too much, 100 is too small, 150 140, no, 150 is probably okay. Let's do 160. And we're going to give it height as well. 160 pixels. Okay, so we give the height to the wrong element. Or did we? Yeah, we did. Okay. Again, width 150 pixels. Height 150. 50 pixels. Okay, they look square now. And that's good. But the problem right now is that we need to make sure that the text is aligned to the center. And this is something that we'll need to do right now. And we're going to achieve that by modifying h2 here. Oh, sorry, h3. So I'm going to add margin top 20 pixels. Okay, that's pretty much centered. Maybe 19, 18, 19. Yeah, it's probably 20 pixels. Okay, that looks centered. That looks fairly good. I'm actually going to reduce the size from 150 to something smaller. So I'll get back to you. I'm going to play around with styling here to make sure that it fits all of the elements nicer, and we'll resume our session. Okay, so we have I have finally found something that works quite nicely, and it turned out to be that I needed to change the margin top to 10 for the h3 tag over here. So let's change that here. And I also reduce the padding here to 5 pixels and width and height to 120. That's pretty much the, I guess, the golden key here that worked. And it looks nice. I think it looks nice. It's exactly the right size. If you look at our design, I think it looks even better. I think designer used a nicer font though, but in general I think it looks really good. So what is really bugging me here right now is the fact that this is not mobile friendly. It's not mobile friendly at all, and that's what I hate about it. If you look at the rest of the website, it looks really nice and sharp and mobile friendly. Proper margins everywhere, all of the elements line up properly. This thing is just ridiculous. I don't know how and why Bootstrap created elements that are supposedly mobile friendly, but they're not. I mean, yeah, sure, they're responsive, but when they stick together in a clump, that's not good. Let's just delete this element over here, which was the dummy test tab element that we populated. And while we are at it, I'm also a member of MDB Bootstrap. You might wonder, why don't you use MDB Bootstrap? It has so many elements there. pre-built for you. Why do you build things from scratch? It's a good question. And I am using MDB. And many blocks that we built, they are MDB blocks. And actually, this website is preloaded with MDB. There we go, mdb.min.css. So we have access to pretty much the latest technology here. And that's the tabs that are available with MDB Bootstrap. And we have a premium version for it. This could actually work if my designer used it. But she created something different. So we'll have to stick with whatever she created. And another thing about building things from scratch using the pure Bootstrap is that it's something that somebody else can reuse. Somebody who doesn't have a MDB account. So I wonder how this will look on mobile device. You can see that they don't have too many tabs. They just have 4. Let's copy this code and let's see how it looks like on mobile device. Are they going to clump together? There we go. I told you that we have indeed MDB installed. We actually do have everything installed. And let's have a look at what will happen on a mobile device. Not too bad. I think it looks okay. They are misaligned, that's for sure. If you have different text sizes, you're going to have misalignments. But in general, it's okay. I mean, it still requires quite a bit of work for it to be presentable on the client's website, because things need to be perfect on the client's website. So technically we could have used it, but you see how on a mobile device they clump together. That's the smaller screen. If we had 5 items, the 5th one will be somewhere over here. It's going to look fairly ugly, not very user-friendly. So we'll need to make sure that we have a mobile version that works very nicely. And I don't know how we're going to do that yet, but we have to do it. Let's close this thing. Good idea, but not good enough. Alright, let's work on desktop version right now. Once we build desktop version, we're going to continue with mobile version next. So we have this element over here. These are tabs, and as you can see, they are actually working, just like a tab should be working. So we can technically add information here. Now, what bugs me is this space over here, and I wonder, where does it come from? We have now enough items here, we have enough bills, and it looks like there is a margin left somewhere. Let's just see if I'm right. Margin left, 0. Okay, we definitely have margin left somewhere. There we go. It's actually part of my styles. They have to do with UL, which is fairly easy to retarget, that I know what it is. Let's target the UL, and we're going to do it this way. margin left 0, like that. So we target specific element, this element. Okay, so our margin is gone. What's happening here? Looks like we have another margin, or padding, yet it would be padding. Tab content, it's part of MDB Pro. That's the problem when we have a lot of different content builders and together things do become they do conflict, and MDB does have a problem because they start to override native Bootstrap styles. I think that's bad practice. Anytime that you actually develop a block that sits on top of your native block, which is Bootstrap at this time, we always have to wrap it within the specific ID tag, so it doesn't override other styles. That's what we're doing, but that's not what MDB has done. So I'll have to override the MDB's native tab content CSS element here, and I don't like to override elements. Let's see if we can do something different with it. I'm just going to add an inline style here. Where's that padding? Okay, so this will ensure that we have content lined up properly. Okay, so far so good. So we are ready to start on our essential section, which will contain our header. Actually, this is part of that editor element, and 2 pictures. Let's get going. So this information will sit right over here. I'm going to give myself some space to work with. And let's add some content. Now I'm actually going to retrieve, no, I'm not going to retrieve content just yet. Now I just need to make sure that this is H2 formatted. So when WordPress will pull this information out, it's going to put H2 over here. So I want to make sure that I mimic the WordPress output. And I'm going to add the p tags over here. If you're still watching this video, I mean, we have, it's almost an hour that has passed. Congratulations. You have a very good attention span. Or maybe you're learning how to program. Anyways, I wish you best of luck. Alright, so we have this here. We are targeting the header is not supposed to look like this. So we need to make sure that we address the H2 tag over here. And for that, we need to make sure that we have a more specific block. So how about if we create row and how about if we create div class column, and let's give it 12 on a mobile device, and on large screen Let's give it half of the page. But not only that, we're going to give this row a special class, VA content. And we're going to add this information inside here. You'll see why we're going to do that in a moment. Okay, let's jump back to our stuff over here. VA content sits inside an ID tag. Like this. And we're going to target H2. Like so. Alright, let's have a look. Things will shift to the left. What is really important for me right now is to make sure that we have margins, but they are not shifted to the left, and that's good, because usually you add row right after the container. When I see a lot of other tags between the container and the row, it makes me worried. But it's good that it works here, so we can keep it this way. So the generic structure is good, and now we have this CSS element that we can address right now, and we can override the styles for it. Font family. Let's do inherit. Let's do font size 2em, font weight, something like this. Color black, text align left. Alright, looks good. Let's copy this and paste it here. Okay, wonderful. So the next thing, we'll need to add this graphic over here. So the way that we add the graphic, we'll need to add the picture here. Image src. Let's browse for it. And it's going to be this one. But the fact is that we need to include the proper template directory, which will have a path directly to our images. So I'll need to do this. Temp dir. By the way, images are stored inside the images folder. So this get template directory URL, you need to have this if you want images, if you want to display your images that are coded inside your images folder. Okay, temp dir, semicolon, let's close this thing. I will need to echo it out. Okay. And close the tag. So theoretically, we'll have a picture here. Let's have a look. Yay, we do have a picture. Okay, looking good. The image, I think the image needs some space. It needs some margin top of 20 pixels. And I think we need to make sure that it actually gets that. Not only that, but we also need to make sure that the image is mobile friendly, meaning that it has attribute of image fluid. Yes, it does. Okay, that's good. I've programmed it by default elsewhere. Let's give this image this margin top. And we're going to target image img, margin top 20 pixels. Let's upload that. Okay, wonderful. You see how we can, for the new ones who are learning how to program with CSS, you can see how we can target individual elements within the class, which is a really cool way how you can program. And I like how you can just stack classes together and become more and more specific, drilling down directly to specific elements. And the beauty of it, you don't affect any other element on your website. Even big companies like MDB seem to messed up that element, which should be an industry standard. But enough of me ranting here. Let's continue working. I'm going to add, actually going to copy and paste this over here. And let's add another picture. By the way, you might want to include alt tags for search engine optimization purpose. It's up to you really, but it's a good practice to have. Let's add 3D small. By the way, we have really good 3D designer. If you need 3D work, 3D images, we can create that for you. Very inexpensive. So these images they're copyrighted by us because they have been developed by us. So we should add the copyright sign on it. But yeah, okay, sounds good. So here we have the image. Looks pretty cool. I think this pretty much wraps up this block. When I click the next element, it doesn't come up, and it comes up right over here. So the next block that we need to do is to format this text actually, because if we have less text, it's going to move up and down as you click through images, and we want to have an effect of it staying still and just the images changing. So I'm going to give this text some height. I'm going to wrap it into a div tag. Actually, I'm going to add the div tag here. Div class text va text wrap. I'm adding VA because VA is WebAICA, stands for WebAICA, so I like to make sure that we are as specific as possible when it comes to our CSS classes, so we don't interfere with somebody else's programming. Somebody else is going to use our our library in their website. So whenever you're going to program something for us, make sure that you include WA before your style. Okay, W text wrap, and now this image here sits inside WA content, sits inside a new div now, so we need to make sure that we add it here. It's not necessary, but it is a good practice. And same here. Okay, wonderful. So much coding just to give this text some minimum height. W text, and let's give it min height 20 to 100 pixels, not 400 pixels. Why is it not changing? Because it's also taking the image into its wrap. So we're going to take the image out of this equation. So image is going to sit right over here. Sorry, image, you are left alone. Let's refresh this thing again, and let's give it some height again. Min height 200 pixels. There we go. 100. Let's do 150, 60. Let's do 170. Let's do 180. 180 pixels. Okay, awesomeness. So the next element that we're going to work on is, we're almost there. We are almost there. We can actually populate all of the information now directly from the WordPress. That's exciting. And actually put our advanced custom fields functionality into function. Now I'm going to also hijack some code again. I like doing that. Let's take this directly from, let's take it from here. Basically, what is really important for me is to get the loops here, because I don't remember always how to program the loops, simply because I don't program them every day. And I'm looking right now at elements that are repetitive. So we have 5 elements that will be repetitive. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections. So we'll need to have 5 alike classes. Like this. And we're going to need to end the loop. We're going to need to end the loop right over here. So you can see that it's going to loop through God knows what, because links are not, it's not our repeater field. Our repeater field is called items. So let's change the title. Items. I'm just going to keep this subfield here. So if I refresh the screen, I'm going to get this repeated 5 times, which will look horrible. But for the fun of it, we haven't had fun for a while now, let's mess up our design. Okay, so it does repeat, and that also means that it does recognize that there is 5 repeater fields here, and it is taking information out of it. The only thing that we need now is to make sure that we are programming the active element correctly, because as you can see that the active element only shows up in the very first element, in the very first item. So we need to make sure that the active item shows up in the first, I guess it's called tab, and not on the other ones. So in order to do that, I'm going to specify a variable here called active. I actually already have active variable. Let's do let's just do active. Now I want to make sure that I don't make any spelling mistakes here. So I usually copy and paste where it's really critical, because I'll be breaking my head trying to figure out what's wrong with it. And I'm going to replace this with PHP echo. Echo means output or display act. Okay, so it's going to display active if it exists. But you notice that there is a space here. I don't like the space. And I'm going to introduce the space right over here. Okay, so that's good. But it's still going to print active on all of the elements. And we need to unset active once it prints over here. So we're going to create a PHP statement here that active equals to nothing. There's many ways of doing it. You can say unset variable active, but I'll just do that. Okay, so now it will enter the loop. It will carry the active information into the loop. It will print it out here that it is active. And next time that's going to go through the loop, it's not going to display active, because active is really nothing. So it's just going to print nothing. And that's how we can set active to print only in the first iteration here. But what I want to make sure that there is only one, there is no other elements here that are associated with this first item link. So I'm going to go through it and see if there is a difference between this one and this one. And I think I can see already some differences. Toggle pill, okay. Okay, do you see this thing? Pills-home, pills-profile, and they relate directly to the ID elements of the pills over here. I guess they're called pills, not tabs, but it doesn't really matter. The fact is that we'll need to make sure that the ID matches to this. So we need to create an ID dynamically. And for that we'll need to do a little bit more of PHP programming. Let's create a dynamo ID ID equals to ID, pill ID. Let's just do pill ID like this. And then we're going to do this pills dash HP echo pill dynamo ID. Okay, so all of them will have the same pill ID right over here at the very end. So if I upload it right now, it's not going to work. Basically, we'll not be able to click on any tab, and it's not going to change. See how it changes right now because I haven't refreshed the screen yet. But once I refresh the screen, we're still going to get all of the mess over here. But it works. It shouldn't have worked. Alright, it works because we messed up on the first one. The other ones are still, we haven't changed the other ones. But the first one doesn't work, and that's what I was expecting. The first one will not work. Because it references now a different ID, pill ID. And we'll need to modify this loop later to make sure that the IDs match. But we need a unique ID for each iteration. And there's going to be 5 iterations of it. So let's expand this thing over here. Yeah, no, it's taken a bit some time. That's nature of programming. Can be hard work, but the beautiful thing about it is that you can reuse the blocks. Once we build it, we can use it for some other website, and that's really gold. And if we build this block really nicely, we can always find new place for it. And our objective here is to build a very nice block. So I'm going to say dynamo ID, and the period before the equals implies that I'm going to add to it something. And I'm going to add to it a number, $n. And in fact, this can even be 1, like this. So now it's going to be pills-1, and we're not going to add to it, we're going to literally add to it. Okay, so let's have a look at what we have right now. If I hover over the pills over here, we can see that I have pill ID, and the next third one will have the same one, pill ID. So that's what I expected. Now if I refresh the screen, we should have pills-1 and pills-2. Pills-2. Okay, and let's inspect this one. Pills-1. Okay, great. So it's counting. 1, 2, and this one should be 3. Okay, so we are dynamically changing our ID on the pills. That's really good. It's working. What else is different? What else is different? Role is tab. Okay, that's similar. Same. aerial controls pills home. Okay, so this is the same same thing as here, so we can just duplicate it. Area selected is true. What do we have here? Area selected is false. So we need to add one more element that will work in the very same way as the active element. But we're going to title a different select true. Okay. So the first time that it's going to go through the loop, it's going to specify that it is true. Echo select. But the second time that it's going to go through the loop, it's going to say that it is false. Need to make sure that it's spelled correctly. Okay. There we go. Now we have addressed this thing. So let's just verify what we have created. I'm going to now delete these two dummy blocks that we have created. And we're going to go through the PHP loop and to make sure that everything is outputted correctly. Now we have 5 blocks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as we expected. And let's have a look at what we have. We have to have, I'm going to actually look at it directly inside the inspection here. Okay. What is really important for me is to make sure that we have true and false elements working. And they are working. You can see that the first one is true, the rest are false. The ID numbers are counting properly. The ID numbers here are counting properly. Bill's home tab. Now, this ID is troublesome for me. Why is it a home tab? Okay, so this is the same. It's another ID. But does it get reference anywhere? Or does it not? Looks like it's not being referenced anywhere. So we might as well change the home to just the dynamo ID, just a number. Technically, it's not really needed. That ID element. Okay. So nothing will work right now, simply because we have referenced our IDs to the actual tabs that don't exist, because they're looking for the proper ID numbers to be referenced. Pills-home has to be pills-1. So if I change this to 1, else 1, and that should work. Let's have a look. Or maybe it's not going to work because we need at least 2 of them. Oh, yeah, it's working. You can see that it reloads. If I click elsewhere, then back to it. So it reloads, so it is working. Okay, so let's continue with our programming here, and we are going to now do the same loop, but for the content over here. Before we go, we need to modify this. We need to retrieve information from our database and populate the actual information over here. And the way that we do that is I'm going to echo get subfield, and the subfield for this is title T, but it's just a title. The actual ID for it is title _T or all lowercase. So if I'm going to refresh that and going to refresh this thing, we'll see that all of them will change to the correct size that we have specified inside our database and inside the WordPress. And we also need to echo out the bottom portion of our title, and that should be the end for the header. There we go. Small, medium, large, huge, gigantic. So we are dynamically have added 5 elements here. Now it might need to be centralized now that I'm looking at it, but that's beside the point. Let's we'll do the styling we'll do the fine adjustments after we finished with the internal loop over here. Okay, so internal loop, let's work on it right now. I'm going to be copying pretty much everything over here because the secondary loop is very similar, and I'm going to see what repeats. And what repeats is we have this tab, this huge element repeats, so we'll have quite a bit of work here right now in front of us. Again, if you think it's too much, it's not too much, that's what it takes. If you want to quickly use it for your website and skip the learning curve, feel free to sign up to our web developers group, and you can get access to not only this element but a lot of other elements together, and you can implement it for your business. Okay, so let's get going. Before we do that, we're going to section it off so I know what I'm working with and what I need to duplicate. Pardon the sounds in the background. I am working from home. It's very convenient to work from home, and I fully enjoy it. That's the beauty of being a web developer and running your own business. Alright, so we need to produce this 5 times. So it will go inside our loop over here. Now you can see that we have this image element, which is really not necessary, so we can just delete it. And I'm going to delete it right over here as well. And I'm going to close PHP tag right here. So let's just add our script that will need to be, well, HTML code that will need to be reiterated 5 times. If I refresh this screen, what will happen? Let's have a look. Sometimes I wonder what will happen. Yep, it will show up 5 times. Because it has the same. It doesn't change the pill code. Pill ID needs to change, and this needs to change. Alright, so first thing first, we're going to echo out. Do you see how we reset the variables? It's really important that we do reset the variables. So we need to pills, make sure that the ID matches, and this also matches. Okay, let's have a look. Technically speaking, it also shows the show element, which should be only for the very first element. See how this doesn't have it, but this does have it. So we'll need to create a variable called show. We'll clean up variables after. Show. And same thing, I'm going to give it some space. PHP echo. I'm going to echo out show. And do you see how it has the active as well? So we'll need to echo out active as well. And it's act for us. So I can effectively remove these things. Active also has a space here, which is important. If they don't have spaces, they're going to clump together and create a different CSS style, which we do not need. And going to close out the tags over here. We need to make sure that the show does not show, just like the active doesn't show after the first loop that it goes through. Okay, so active and show will not show and will not be displayed after the first iteration. ID pills equals to dash, which will become our dynamic element. Role equals to tab panel, that same thing. Area labeled by profile contact. Okay, so we have this thing here, and I think that's good. I think that's good. Technically, if I delete this, we should be able to list through our tabs and we will not see a bunch of them one after another. Let's have a look. Yay, so they disappeared. That's good. I'm actually going to exit the cell phone mode here for a second, and I'm going to see if I can see other ones. And we do see other ones. Bill 1, Bill 2, Bill 3. The only concern that I have is when I clicked on the second one. Oh, it did change. I thought it didn't change. Bill 1. Okay. Bill 1 shows this. Bill 2. Okay, looks like it's working. Let's continue. Obviously, we now need to add this information right over here. Remember how this whole section was part of the WordPress? Where is it? Yep. It was all part of this one block called content. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to echo out the whole content block all together like this. Let's have a look. Now the content block is identical across all of the elements here, except for the sizes, because I still I didn't receive this information from our client just yet. Sorry, it has to be echoed out in the correct way, that's for sure. This way. There we go. Okay, so if we click on another one, you can see that it actually pulls information from the WordPress. Wonderful. Gigantic needs to be with capital G. We're going to go here and we can modify it inside our WordPress, or the client can now administer their own website fairly easily, which is the ultimate goal of our development at WebBaker. We need to make sure that the client always has complete control over their website, and that the website loads really fast and works very nicely. Okay, so this is good. The only element that remains for us is to change up the pictures to take it from the WordPress, and we need to do minor styling adjustments. And the last huge element that remains is to create a mobile version. So I'm going to go take a quick lunch break and we'll be back. Okay, I'm back now and it's time to finish our programming. Actually, it's the second day today. And we'll need to make sure that we can dynamically retrieve images and populate them here. Let us find the location where our elements are located. There we go. So we need to replace these two images. We need to get them dynamically, and it's fairly easy to do that. Going to populate this here. I need to make sure that I have the correct name, image left and image right. Image left. Copy and paste here. So that should work. Let's have a look. Okay. Small, medium. Should say small size. Okay, small size, small, medium. Actually, shouldn't say size, just should say small, like this. Refresh again. Small, medium, large, huge, and gigantic. Okay, I really like how it looks. Everything works very seamlessly, and it feels like nothing gets really refreshed. It's just the images that are changing. Okay, so the next element would be to see if we can style it a little better. One thing that I don't really like is how this is taking up just the left side. I think if they are to be centralized, that would look better. It's not going to do it this way. Okay, so this needs to be centralized. Left auto. Looks like I'll have to be overwriting their styles here a little bit, so we can centralize them. Or they have native styles that I could apply. I'm going to look into Bootstrap documentation right now, and I'll be right back. Okay, so it looks like there wasn't any magic bullets here. I had to set specific width, and the specific width was here fit content, and then the alignment would take into the effect. So I'm going to create this style here to make sure that they are aligned properly. And we do not override the native styles of the Bootstrap. UL WA and that's going to be located under WA VA BC9. Actually, we could do it here. Yeah, Dreamweaver doesn't have fit content. Or does it? No, it doesn't. Okay, yeah, so that worked. I think it looks a lot better this way. I'm thinking it would be nice to have a border under it or something. something to divide it. Yeah, this looks a lot better. Much nicer structure. Small lines like this make all the difference sometimes. This is going to sit inside our inline style. Sorry. Okay, so it looks good. It's functional. It looks good. Very easy for users to see what they're doing here. I think the frequently asked questions section needs a line as well. Because it really blends in with the other section here. Something like this maybe. And I think this section could also use a line under it. Actually, the same line, same type of line. And we need to give it some padding. 20 pixels. We could even do double here. Let's see. Double line, 4 pixels. Yeah, I think this double line supports the upper elements a lot nicer, and it's a better divider. The rest of the sections, they're more of questions and answers and informational sections. This is our navigation elements. So it's a good idea to have a division here. But we're slightly going into a different section right now. I'll be coming back to the mobile version of this thing shortly. Okay, looking good. Let's work on the mobile responsiveness. But before we do that, just one more idea. What if we give it some background? I know this is not part of the initial design that the designer has created, but looks like we have a tornado warning. So yeah, we definitely had the tornado warning, so expecting a tornado right now. should be here anytime soon. Okay, so this looks okay with some sort of background, but the images are white, so we'll have to stick with just plain white. We could potentially change to a different background color to give it some spice, but at this time we're just going to stick with white. Okay, so what do we need to do next? We need to have a look at this the mobile version and work on the mobile responsiveness. Now that I'm looking at this layout here, we actually don't have to have 5 elements here. It can be any number of elements. So I'm going to go back to custom fields, and I'm going to go to 5 option block. It doesn't have to be 5 option, 5 item option block. So I did call it incorrectly. That's just a name. And I'm going to remove the limits that we have set here. And hit update. I mean, it's not going to change anything. It's just the restrictions and functionalities that are embedded inside the actual WordPress that will change. Let's go back to pages. We'll click back into this section here, and let's shrink this thing. Okay, I don't like how it jumps down and how it sticks together like that. So we need to give it some padding at the top. Actually, not padding, some margin at the top. And we can do it here. Margin top 20 pixels. If we're going to give it some margin at the very top, we need to reduce the margin over here, and we can do that by deleting this style over here. Or was that incorrect style that I deleted? Yeah, I deleted the wrong one. Okay, we need to remove Alright, so we'll probably have to work with line height over here. So with line heights, you want to be watchful, because if you make line height too small, then the letters will blob together on a cell phone version. So we have set it to 55 pixels for this specific size of the font, and it seems to work fine, and it had reduced the height, the space between the buttons and the title. So that's going to be H2 that we need to modify. And we still have kept our margins over here, the top margins. So this looks a lot better right now. There seems to be extra space on the right side that makes it jump. and they're not centralized within the boxes, I think. Because we have margin or on the right side. But I think it would be a good idea to have a margin on the left and on the right. Margin right. Let's make this 10 pixels. And let's do margin left. Also 10 pixels. Okay. Now I really don't like how, actually on the smallest it doesn't clutter together. This is good. But when we click on it, we don't really see what's going on down below. So we'll definitely need to modify this images for mobile responsiveness. Definitely need to modify those. Pretty much up to here they're okay, in my opinion. Yeah, probably from here we'll need to do some modifications. Okay, so let's continue. We did not have hurricane coming through, but we did definitely get tornado coming through, but we did get a bit of rain. So now that let's do some mobile work here. So this block is called BC9. I'm going to find it in our CSS styles, BC9, and I'm going to actually go all the way down. I'm going to grab some of the styles here. And I'm going to drop them here. Small, medium, extra large. So I think we're missing large. Element here. Yeah, we are definitely missing large. Large devices right here. Okay. Okay, so we have all of the styles that we need, and you can see that all of the mobile styles are located right inside our enclosed parameters for this specific block. I know people say do mobile first and then do the other sizes. So we start with the mobile version really, and then we continue with with the desktop. But I don't have a template for mobile version, and for me it's easier to start with the desktop version. And I'm actually working backwards. I know a lot of other developers do the same thing. But in terms of the CSS structure, it always is mobile first. I'm not reversing the order here, and that's really important. Okay, so let's have a look at the buttons here. I don't like how they look on a mobile device. I think the headers need to be much smaller, and the buttons need to be way smaller. So let's do that. H3, H4, and the link. I'm going to cut it out of here, and I'm going to position it right over here. Now, they still need to exist over here. Oh, one more thing that we forgot. It's the active style. The element that is currently active. I think it would be a good idea to... I think I messed up something. With margins. Margin top, 20 pixels. And this should have 55 pixel line height. What happened to my styles? That's strange. And we talked about modifying the margins here from 20 pixels to 10 pixels on the right, and left 10 pixels, something like this. What if we change this to 5 pixels? Now it's going to look way too close. Alright, so let's update this. Refresh this. Okay, let's look at the worst case scenario right now. It's going to be a mobile device. And I'm actually going to take these styles over here. I'm going to cut them, and I'm going to position them into the large device CSS set over here. And theoretically, if I update it right now on a mobile device, we'll have a bunch of gibberish here. Yep, so we have reverted back to the native styling, which is good. And if we increase the screen size, there we go, it changes back to the normal. So I'm going to paste them here once again, and we're going to start actively changing them. So the idea here is to make them as small as possible, and in fact I'm actually going to hide the descriptions. I'm going to keep the black text over here. I'm going to display none attribute. That would be for the H4 display none. I'm actually going to give it some offset over here. This way I know which styles I have specifically for the mobile device and which ones I've modified. So I'm going to get rid of the height property, and the width I'm going to keep. So the height property over here is not going to be present. Let's go back to our mobile version, the desktop version, and I know that the height was erased, so I'm going to add it as on a different line over here. You'll see why I do that in a moment. Okay, so we need to make sure that we do display this as block, and that has to be for the H4 display block. Now what if we move this thing back one size? Let's see if it still looks good on that side, on that size. We can definitely change the breakpoints, that's not an issue. But I want to make sure that we stay as close as possible to our design. Okay, so it looks good here. I didn't really see much change. That worries me. Let's move it back to here. Save, upload. So it should change on 1200 pixels to this version. So we're going to reduce it 1200, yes. Okay, so now we're going to move it back to 992 pixels. That's the breakpoint. So if I continue shrinking it, yeah, it still stays. That's good. Okay, excellent. 992. So it still looks good and sharp on this size. Let's go back to the cell phone version. I know I'm jumping from different items here, from different sizes, and I'm ignoring the sizes in between. Just that's how I learned how to do programming styling. I think my personal opinion, it's the fastest way. So I'm going to drop this font size to something like maybe 1.1 EM. Actually, no, let's make it bigger. 1.3. Okay, that's H3. H3, so this will go over here. I'm going to delete this from here. 1.3 EM. And this is the style that will get overwritten on a larger screens, and it will change it to 1.8 EM. Let's refresh that. Now, do you see how it's not centered? It's not supposed to look this way. This margin top needs to be modified from 10 pixels to probably something like 5. Yep. Let's modify margin top. Or was that padding top? That was H3 margin top. 5 pixels. Okay, and this is something that we have modified. So I'm going to give it some space over here. And then margin top for the H3 is 10 pixels right over here. Like this. And I think the color can change really to white. Or should we keep it black? I think white looks better. H3, let's change this to FFF. And then once we get to the larger screens, we keep it at the black color, like this. Okay, what else do we have? I think it's pretty cool. The buttons are much smaller. We could potentially make them way smaller. Let's just do a quick test here. Let's make font size really small. Let's make it 0.8 em. 0.9. Let's make the actual link size width, going to drop it to 50 pixels. No, something bigger, 60, 70. Probably 70. I think 70 works well. Yeah, let's do 70. 70 pixels, and font size will be 0.9. The H3. Hopefully I might find the right one. Let's have a look. Okay, I modified not the right one. Okay, what did I modify? I modified the incorrect version. Okay, here we need to modify this. Width needs to be 70 pixels. And font size needs to be 0.9. Okay, that should be good. Yeah, there we go. This did not get overwritten because font size I modified it by accident. What was it, 1.8? I think it was 1.8. Okay, I think it looks good. If we look at it from a mobile version standpoint, a user can click on different sizes. The buttons are fairly small, easy to navigate. They're easy to press with the finger. They're not too cluttered together. They do have some design to them. And they effectively display information for a user. So I think we would wrap up this video now. It took about 2 hours to complete this small section, but we took something that was created by Bootstrap, and we modified it to look fairly good, I think. And yeah, I think the module is pretty much finished. If you want to modify it, improve it somehow, you're welcome to. The way that we work is we have a small library of scripts. Today is August 2020, and by the time you're watching this video, our library will probably be a lot bigger than it is right now. It is password protected at this moment, so the way that we work as a small community of developers, each person has a $5 fee per month to have access to our collection of scripts, and then they can navigate to, let's say, content blocks, and you can see different blocks that we have created over here. Here's a nice block, some really cool stuff over here. You can expand it, and you can copy CSS, you can copy HTML, and it also comes with JSON file. The JSON file is needed for you to be able to quickly create the structure within advanced custom fields. So next time that we'll be using this block here, it will just take about 5 minutes to add to a website. So I'm going to pause video recording right now, and I'm actually going to add this block to our library, and I'll be back with another probably 5-minute overview of our block being installed inside our library. Alright, thanks. So we are pretty much done with this tutorial. We have added our content to our database. And the way that you can find it is you go to Body Elements, Content Blocks, BC. And then we're going to go all the way down. There is no specific order of elements right now, simply because we haven't really spent time on organizing it just yet. That's why it's a very inexpensive subscription at this time, and it's really here to help us allocate some resources to continue building this library. Developers that join right now and become part of this small community, we're pretty much just pitching in together to build out this system for ourselves to work with. And here you can, let's say you have a new website, right? You want to add this element to your new website. So you go back to your WordPress. Let's just quickly create a new template file. Going to copy template home, paste it here. I'm going to actually need to create another template, template internal. I'll call it template internal PHP, and I'm going to delete all of this information from here. Okay, so we have blank template. I'm still going to keep this. Sometimes I reference to internal images, and we're going to call this internal page. Save it. So let's say you want to display this block inside an internal page. Assume you have a completely new website and you don't have this block installed. Let's go to, let's work on this first page right here, which will be Millerstown 1. So we'll select Millerstown location. Looks quite ugly. Let's go to Millerstown and let's select the template. Internal page. Going to hit update here and let's refresh this. And it looks semi-decent now. Okay, so we're ready to install our new element. We're going to go to custom fields and let's just assume that this thing is not here. I'm going to add it. I'm going to click add new. Oh, sorry, never mind. It was a long day. Let's go back to tools. So we'll need to go to tools and we're going to need to import our block. Now how do we import the block? We're going to go to our library. I'm going to scroll all the way down over here. So initially it's not going to be expanded. You click expand and you get your JSON file right over here, which is actually not a JSON file. We cannot store JSON files due to the security restrictions, but we do have a zip file which contains a JSON file. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to add it to my desktop over here. I'm going to close it out and then we're going to import file. Choose file, my desktop, and there we go, import file. Okay, it has been imported. We're going to go back to field groups, and we have, what do we have? I guess it just overwritten on top of what was here because we already have the block here. But that's pretty much as easy as it gets when you want to import a block. Just to give you a quick, I know this wasn't very clear. Let's delete it. Okay, we don't have the block here. We need to add it to our groups. Going to go to tools, choose file, export, import file. It has been added. Going to go to field groups. There it is. Okay, so we need to show it on our new page. We're going to add a new rule. Page template equals to internal page, and it will hide the content editor automatically. Going to click update it. So you can have one element being used on multiple pages like this. Let's go back to pages now. Let's go back to, well, I've deleted the previous block and I've reinstalled it, so we'll see if it actually kept the information. Yeah, it still has the information, which is good. I'm just going to quickly check it on the home page over here if it still contains all of the values, and it does, which is also good. And this is our Millerstown page, and we have basic template here set up for us, ready to use. Now Millerstown page doesn't have any anything displayed right now on it. Where is it? Right here, Millerstown. It's empty. Let's add this section here, just to give you a quick demo how quickly and easily it can be done. We're going to go back to our database here. Going to copy HTML, which is really a conglomeration of HTML and PHP. You can see how nicely it just falls into place with all of the proper margins and everything. Going to save this, going to upload it, and we also need to add CSS file. So we're just going to click copy CSS. We're going to go back to the CSS element. Now I already have the CSS here, but just to give you a quick demo, I paste it and it lays out CSS file like this, very clean, all proper spacing and everything. So I'm just going to go a step backwards here, make sure that we don't duplicate our CSS styles. And actually, speaking of which, speaking of duplication, remember we left the spaces here. I forgot to remove unnecessary code. So the idea is, if the code repeats, if the styles repeat at the top, we don't need them to be repeated down at the bottom. So these styles should display our stuff properly. Let's just quickly check that. No, we have changed something, and that was the width that needed to be here. Let's see if this is going to work now. Yeah, there we go. Okay, you see how many styles we got rid of. We left only the elements that needed to be modified. And if we reduce the screen size, everything works as expected. Okay, one last thing before we go. We need to make sure that we update our library with an updated CSS code. So we're going to copy this, going to go back to library, self-storage, where is our library? Going to go to pages, and we definitely need to reorganize all of the elements. Right now they're just put together because we didn't really have that many elements before, but since we have started expanding this small project of ours, now we have fairly substantial number of blocks, and we are adding new blocks almost every other day. So we need to make sure that we have a better structure to organize them. So by the time that you are probably looking at the video and signing up for it, you'll probably see our library that will be very different from what it is right now. Better design, probably the blocks are going to be in some sort of proper order and format. Okay, there we go. Going back to, sorry to jump around on you a little bit like this. Going back to our internal page. Our page is our Millerstown page. We still don't have anything here because we don't have any content inside the Miller's page section here. But we can add some content. This is header, and we can add row. It's going to give us title, subtitle. We can add information, goes here. We can add image, and we can add another image, and we can click update. And now that we're going to refresh the screen, suddenly it is right here. You can see that we have a header here. Well, just one, because there was only one that we added. If we're going to add the second one, second subtitle and second info. Going to add an image, add another image, update. You can see how quickly we can build a website using these blocks once we have it pulled from the database. And it's already mobile friendly, so it's really cool. It just works like that. Takes really minutes to put a website together when we have a library of scripts like that. So that's pretty much it for today. Thanks for tuning in. If you are interested to become a member of our small developers group, and keep in mind that every one of us develops things slightly differently. You're welcome to contribute. Not all of the blocks that get sent to us are accepted, but if your block is accepted into our library, we will definitely give you 2 months of subscription for free. So if you're in process of developing blocks for your other websites, feel free to submit some to us, and you can definitely get in for free as well by submitting blocks like that. But I mean, $5 a month is really nothing compared to the large number of elements that you're going to get in return. It's going to speed up your web development work. Alright, thanks. We'll do some more development in future, and we'll build some more blocks in future. Have a good day. Take care. Bye.